Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is, and welcome back. I hope that your rest was outstanding, and today you accomplished every single thing you set your mind to. We got business to attend to, though, before we close it out on this lovely Tuesday. We've got a bunch of various filings to review, starting with this one, which is coming out from Royce C. Lamberth out of the District of Columbia. And this case involves the T's at the end of the alphabet, soup people. And the T's want to be recognized when they're prisoners in federal custody. And if they don't get their meds, they go bananas. And what happens is they sue and they end up in this judge's courtroom, Judge Royce C. Lamberth, a guy we've talked a lot about here that we'll talk a little bit more about. He was actually a Reagan appointee. He's 81 years old now. And he is somebody who was brutal on the J6ers. So has just been anti-Trump for a long time, anti-America ever since this new incarnation of jurisprudence coming out of the courts. But we'll go through this. We'll see what his order was. And we'll see what the FBI and Pam Bondi and Caroline Levitt say about all this. We're not celebrating anything on June. Okay, that whole scam's up. And we also had amazing clips. So these are well worth them. So coming up, Kennedy, Hawley, and Cruz. Kennedy, Hawley, and Cruz. Bringing you the news and singing the blues. So we'll go through it. We got a bunch of senators, great clips. Scorched earth. There was a judiciary hearing today where they brought in some professor to say, this is totally normal. Actually, Trump is the bad person, not any of the judges. So we'll go through that. Then we got a new filing against Alina Habba. She's getting sued by Mayor Baraka. And of course, this was the same mayor that we've talked about here before. This fella right here, Mayor Ross Baraka, who was the subject of the body slam attack by Representative Monica McIver. See, he was right there with the hat on. Now, he was not charged. Alina Habba showed tremendous benevolence, but he, for some reason, didn't get the hint. And now he is suing her. So we'll go through this complaint. We'll see it's 17 pages, see what's going on over there before we see what Alina Habba is up to. And we'll check in on the Monica McIver, the body slam case, and see if there's anything going on there. So she's getting sued. We'll go through that. Then we'll talk about this Biden Autopen kerfuffle because, man, this is getting spicier by the day. More and more evidence is coming in. And we see that the DOJ is now launching an investigation into Joe. That's being confirmed here by Reuters and by Ed Martin, the DOJ pardon attorney. And Caroline Levitt was asked about that today specifically by Peter Doocy. Now, we're looking at these pardon documents. And before on this channel, we've gone through the Oversight Committee's prior reports. They had prior, report 1 and 2. We looked at a lot of these and whether we've got evidence that Joe Biden's Autopen was being exploited. So they have a new update for us that they just dropped today. Part 3 from the Oversight Project. We'll go through it, see what their latest update is on this as the investigation continues. So we'll hear from them. We'll hear from Doocy. We got Josh Hawley coming up again. And next question, are we going after Jill or Hunty, the two who are actually running the whole scam? All right, so we'll see. We got a bunch of stuff coming up, my friends. Really glad that you're here. Would love to invite you to become a member if you're not already a member. We do members-only streams here in the morning. We go for about an hour today. We had an extra special stream this morning because our friend Heavy Johnny sent us in some goodies from Japan. And this morning on the members only stream, your boy ate some dried squid because he sent in some goodies and we opened them up and there was a bunch of amazing things in there, including smoked dried squid. So I had to have a bite of it. So we did that this morning. Thank you to Heavy Johnny. And what he ultimately sent was some stuff for the telescope. So we're going to be doing some astronomy stuff too. So thanks for becoming a member. Thanks for joining us on those fun streams. Thanks to Heavy Johnny for sending us stuff all the way from Japan. We had a whole trip to Japan this morning, and it was really cool. So thanks for becoming members, YouTube members, locals members. We're grateful for you. We appreciate you supporting our work. And if we missed you, hopefully you catch it. It was at the end of this morning's stream. It was great. It was great. Eating squid. I don't know. It was a new experience for me. It was very interesting. So check that out. All right. So my friends, and once again, thanks to Heavy Johnny. It was a ton of fun. All right. We had a ton of fun. We went to Japan this morning on the stream. All right. So my friends, we, of course, are going to get into it right now. And let's see if things are working all across the fruited plains. Hopefully they are. Is Rumble not working? Why would it not be working? We connected all the tubes, I thought. All right, let me see if I can do anything about that. I'm not sure that I can. Hang on. Testing. Rumble. Let's see what we got. Slight pause as we diagnose the Rumble tubes. Make sure we got these tubes connected appropriately. Yeah. All right. Well, looks like our RTMPs are connected appropriately. So hopefully Rumble kicks on. I don't know what's going on over there. My apologies, Rumble. All right. So hopefully it clicks over. No. Oh, Rumble's down in general. No Rumble. Rumble's down. All right. All right. So my apologies. Sorry for the delay. We wanted to be very inclusive here. We're inclusive. All right. All right. So here we're getting into it now without any further delay. Let's get to it because we've got some business to attend to, starting with the trans. Here's what we've got. The plaintiffs in this, I think I know what's going on. Twitch is not up either. It might have been my fault. This whole thing might have been my fault. All right, we're going to get into it. Now, we got a stream going. We're here right now, so let's just get to it. We've got a federal judge ordering the transitions to continue. We have this case happening in the District of Columbia and brought by Royce C. Lamberth. We're familiar with this judge because we've covered a lot of cases with him before out of the District of Columbia. He was the same judge, looks like this, about 81 years old, appointed by Reagan a long time ago. And he was terrible on the J6 cases. If you recall, he was the person who handled the QAnon shamans case. And he had some of the longest sentences of more than the 480 people convicted for their actions during the attack. So Lamberth handed down some of the longest sentences that we've seen in all of the cases, and that coming from DC as you would expect. Now today in this decision, he dropped this one, which is basically reversing what Trump did. He's going to give us some background on what happened here. But the T's, who are at the end of the LGBTQs, are now going to be winning on this issue. And this judge is going to be creating this new right for them, essentially, so that Trump cannot stop paying for their transitions or paying for their affirming care or whatever it happens to be. Now, the plaintiffs, writes the judge, in this dispute are inmates in the custody of the Bureau of Prisons who have been medically diagnosed, they say, with gender dysphoria. And during their periods of incarceration, the Bureau of Prisons has provided the plaintiffs with social accommodations like clothing and hair removal devices and all the other things, including hormone therapy, calling this whole thing gender-affirming care as a bundle. Now, to mitigate the negative psychological effects of their conditions, Trump issued an executive order which provides that federal funds shall not be spent on any medical treatment for the purpose of conforming an inmate's appearance to that of the opposite sex. So we're not going to pay for it. If you want to, if the jails want to give you a different outfit or something, that's fine. But we're not going to pay for all of this. Now, the Bureau of Prisons subsequently promulgated 2 implementing memos to guide the agency's execution of the executive order commands. So the plaintiffs and their access to hormone medications and their social accommodations were then cut off, right? So once Trump issues the order, boom, they're cut. Access to the hormone medications has since been restored, but the plaintiffs remain unable to procure social accommodations. And I guess we'll find out what that means, whatever social accommodations are. So they're getting their hormone meds, so that's happening. But social accommodations, whatever that means. So they have now sued. There's a putative class. They've all bundled together and they say, we're the oppressed T's. And so we're suing. We want to come together as a bundle and a class. And the Bureau of Prison Inmates diagnosed with gender dysphoria, they have moved to certify their proposed class and to preliminarily enjoin the executive order. And this judge, Royce Lamberth, comes out and says, granted, you are now a class and your motion for the injunction is granted. Background here, January 20th, President Trump came out, issued the executive order. He said, okay, we're not funding the T's anymore. Clothings, anything that doesn't match the biological sex is now canceled. Now, the 3 plaintiffs in this case, T inmates who were diagnosed with gender dysphoria by staff, were in custody at the time that the order was issued. And they're still in custody today. Now, to be transgender, says the judge, is to feel that one is a member of a particular gender that is different from one's sex assigned at birth, which is coming in from this guy, Dr. Dan Karasik. Both gender identity and sex assigned at birth have biological causes. You might have appearance, you might have chromosomes, you might have hormones and other things. And gender identity may also be influenced by other external factors. So they're going to give us a whole lecture on how this disorder works. Now, the plaintiff, this dude called Alicia, is a transgender woman, I guess for now. I guess the social accommodations are not really in compliance, or maybe they are now in order. So it's debatable what's going on. But the judge says it's a transgender woman. Was diagnosed with gender dysphoria in 2016. Hormone therapy approved to receive social accommodations, including women's undergarments and cosmetics, which actually make you a woman. So this transgender dude has to, in order to fully experience being a woman, has to have cosmetics to put makeup on the face. Otherwise, it's not really the full experience, which is strange. Now, she was denied her usual hormone shot, Alicia's hormone shot, on 3 occasions and turned back into a dude like overnight. You know, like that scene in Cinderella? What happens when the clock strikes midnight, somebody dies or something? So Alicia turned into Alan on January 26th after they missed 1 shot, and then back into Alan again on February 6th and transformed again. And then February 12th again, just like the pumpkin changed back into pumpkins. All the same thing. Unbelievable. The commissary at Kingdom's facility, Alicia Kingdom is my new name. What was the prior name when you were that dude who like murdered someone, or that dude who AR'd somebody, or that dude who did that thing that time? What was your original name, Alicia? What was it before? What got you in here? Was it a violent maniacal rampage because of your testosterone or something? I don't know. And then you flipped? What the hell's going on here? So the commissary at Miss Kingdom's facility also removed social accommodation items on January 26th. And then once again, Alicia became Alan. On February 4th, Kingdom submitted a grievance. They said, this is ridiculous. I need my hormone treatments so I can go back to my old self. 2 days later, got a response that escalated only with a recitation of the executive order. They just said, here's the order. Read it. It says no. No explanation. Judge was not happy. It says, here's the order. It's in the news. We sent you the paper. Didn't you get it? On February 27th, after the issuance of the first implementing memo, and just 1 day before the issuance of the second implementing memo, Miss Kingdom was informed by a local clinical director that your hormone therapy would not be restored. It's cut off. And that the Bureau of Prisons was receiving new policies. So we're not paying for your hormones anymore. So Kingdom then stated that a discontinuation of the hormone caused Kingdom to experience anxiety and hopelessness and panic attacks and suicidal ideation. Oh, no. And no one else in prison is experiencing any of those things. Everything else is pretty much just perfect for everyone else. On March 13th, about a week after this lawsuit, 2 weeks after that, Kingdom had access to hormone therapy restored. The prison avers that Kingdom received an individualized assessment of her prior needs, his prior needs, whatever it was at the time. Kingdom, however, claims that the bureau doctor with whom they met had informed her that the decision to restore treatment had been taken in response to this litigation, and feminine undergarments and commissary items had not been restored. Alicia's not getting tampons, and the judge is going to find this is a violation. We have another person called Solo Nichols, is a transgender man. Wow, okay, so it's an F female to a male. Wow. Who was diagnosed with gender dysphoria in 2021. Yeah. Prescribed hormone therapy in the form of 100 milligram testosterone injections and given access to men's undergarments, men's hygiene products, and chest binders. Then on February 12th, Nichols was given a 50 milligram dose and was informed your next dose is going to be 25. You're getting tapered off, cut in half, and then cut in half again. And then it's going to be discontinued entirely, and you're turning back into Sarah Nichols. Okay, so just get ready. So then on February 21st, Nichols was informed that the testosterone treatment regimen would be re-implemented. It's going to go back to solo again. Now, the prison claims that this decision was made after an individualized assessment looked at Nichols' needs. But according to Nichols, they said, well, your treatment's only going to be coming in here as long as this restraining order, until the restraining order is up. Now, Nichols further avers that although they met with a prison physician prior to the restoration of the full testosterone treatment, the doctor did not examine him or discuss his mental health or anything. Just walked in and just said, nope, all right, all the T's are now getting your testosterone back jacked up again. So go get your shots so you don't experience your dysphoria. Go get them. Mr. Nichols was informed during the last week of February that he would no longer have access to boxers or chest binders, and his access, those products had not been restored. Yeah, okay. So, totally egregious, I'm sure. Now, this is what's happening. Nichols is very scared to live without testosterone therapy because Nichols will lose muscle mass and is going to start menstruating again. Oh, interesting. Because you have a uterus? Is that the one that works, that does function, that function? Oh. And likewise maintains that the thought of wearing feminine undergarments is very uncomfortable. Like I can't breathe if I put a pair of panties on. Oh, I would feel inadequate and embarrassed if I had to wear panties and my uterus started to function again. Lastly, this other plaintiff called Jas Kapoor. Who makes these names up? They get to pick like new names and the court just honors them. Solo Nichols. Incredible. It's like you get to pick your novel character name. Every time you want to switch back and forth, you get to pick whatever you want. I'm going to be Alicia Kingdom. Wow. Is it Kingdom related? No, just because I want to be like a kingdom. Okay. Solo, like Han Solo, maybe, I don't know. And then this last one, Jas Kapoor, is another. Jas Kapoor, that kind of feels like it's trying to say something, I don't have to think about that. Okay, another transgender man, so-called, who began getting hormone treatment and also social and commissary items. Sometime between January 23rd and March 12th, staff informed Kapoor that hormone therapy cut off. Your prescription, as soon as you're done, you're done. So then they sued. They said, well, your therapy is going to come back. His hormone therapy was never discontinued and was told no longer have access to chest binders. The next day, turn in your boxers. You're going to get panties. It's panty time. Now, the Kapoor person fears that the discontinuation of this therapy is going to have the menstrual cycle come back and is going to lead to depression because she has to be a woman. Oh gosh, I wouldn't want a menstrual cycle. I mean, I don't have one, but I mean, if I had an option, I don't know. It looks like it's a lot of work. So that's all I'm saying. It's not, it looks like it's a lot of work. So that might make you depressed. Okay, bros know what I'm saying without, commenting on anything women. We love our women. We love your menstrual cycles. We're very glad that they happen regularly. All right, so on March 17th, the plaintiffs filed for a motion for preliminary injunction. They sued. They said, we're a class action at T's, and our rights are being violated here. We have to wear panties. It's ridiculous. The plaintiffs seek relief in form of a stay. They want 2 memos. They want Trump's executive order all canceled. And on the same day, the plaintiffs filed a motion for class certification. Hey, they're like, hey, if the gangbangers, the MS-13, Tren de Aragua gangbangers, if they're all getting class certifications, we better get some too. The defendants submitted their opposition to both motions, Trump, and they filed separate replies for the reasons the judge says their action is not barred, right? One of Trump's main arguments was you can't sue us for this. What's your problem? If you want to sue a prison, there's a whole set of laws and statutes you have to follow. And you should do that. And the judge says, well, they don't have to do that. They can also come into my courtroom. Second, the T's have also demonstrated a substantial likelihood of success on their APA claims, which are these kind of made up catch-all claims, Administrative Procedures Act claims, and that the court accordingly need not assess the plaintiff's constitutional claims based on the limited record available now. And I think this was mostly the Eighth Amendment cruel and unusual stuff. Third, that the plaintiffs have demonstrated a likelihood of irreparable harm. And fourth, that they're a class. Now, to Roy C. Lamberth's credit, I skimmed through this earlier, and he did go through the whole class certification process, whereas many other judges never even gave Trump the benefit of the doubt on that. So at least he gave a token analysis here. We'll go through it. But he says, in accord with these, this court, Judge Roy C. Lamberth, will now order that there is a class, as modified below, is certified, and class counsel will be appointed. So all the T's will now be a part of a class, and they all are going to get free lawyers and free hormones to become their true selves at your expense. Now, the court will further order that the Bureau of Prisons make available social accommodations as well. All right. So that one dude can get some boxers back to all class members to the same extent they were available, and provide hormone therapy to that one chick who doesn't want her period anymore, to all class members who have been prescribed hormone medications or any other medical personnel to the same extent as before. So now the judges are approving all of the original features that they got under Joe Biden. And so the executive branch cannot run the government according to their intended will. Here's what the judge says. We're going to go through the 4 factors of a preliminary injunction. Who's going to win? Is there going to be irreparable harm? What's the balance of the equities? And is it in the public interest? They say definitely they're a class. Says, well, first of all, they are a class and their claims are not moot at all. Their request for social accommodations is not moot. Okay, so Trump was saying we turn their hormones back on so they can all chill. But all 3 are unable to access their right panties or boxers, which is just critical. Your whole life is over if you get one that was originally prescribed to you. And the others items intended to help the plaintiff conform their appearance to that of the opposite sex, which is, I guess, the belt around the chest. Now, the Kapoor person's request for a continuation is not moot because they keep saying that it's going to be turned off at some point. So none of these things are moot, and we don't know whether they're going to turn them off as soon as this litigation is concluded. So it's not moot, and the judge is going to rule on it. And they weren't required to go file anywhere else. You said that they should have sued if they're upset with the prisons under the statutes that Congress created for those claims, but they don't have to do that. They can sue here if they want. Now, as this court wrote, courts are obliged to hew strictly to the mandatory exhaustion requirement. He's kind of admitting, actually, yeah, you have to go through there. And once you're done there, then you can come to us. But we must apply narrow implicit exception in some instances, which is what I'm going to do here. Now, they say, well, this is not a dead-end situation. They should have gone through that other area. And that the BOP is actually giving them their hormones. Now, at a preliminary injunction hearing, the defendants attempted to explain how this reality could be reconciled. And they say, well, actually, what Trump is saying that they're doing to accommodate is not actually accommodating at all. They say in response, the plaintiffs reiterated at the hearing that one plaintiff called Alicia filed an initial grievance requesting access, and she got just a nasty response. It just said, just read the order. And they say, well, that is not, she can't go through the exhaustion process because the process is abusive. Now, therefore, the operative question is not whether they would be required, but whether they can or whether they were required. They already had stuff that was discontinued. And if you take these into consideration, along with the new policies, you don't know whether they're going to end this at any time. So in sum, their challenge to the prison as being unconstitutional and contrary continues. And their filings declare that they have reached an administrative dead end, and so they can proceed here, saying they're also going to win. They say they're challenging the final agency action because this was a final decision that was made by the Bureau of Prisons. They say that these decisions were consummated by Kingdom's final disposition, saying that her hormone therapy's turned off. They say, okay, so that is the decision, and you've acted, and we're challenging this. And they've demonstrated, that the T's say this is arbitrary and capricious. This is ridiculous. It's just like treatment or care for anyone else. You're just attacking the T's, and this is a giant, bigoted, xenophobic thing to accommodate these people with legitimate issues. The APA provides certain standards. Relevant here, agency action may be set aside if it's arbitrary and capricious. And it's like ridiculous that you would ever say that the government never finds that the government was acting arbitrarily and capricious. The government usually has the right to do basically anything. Let's see what the judge does. Now, as we know, right, they shut you down. Is that arbitrary and capricious? Put your mask on, stand 6 feet apart from each other? No, all of it was perfectly logical because some moron somewhere on a TV screen said it. Among other possible reasons, agency action may be deemed arbitrary and capricious if it's taken without explanation. There's plenty of explanation. The BOP's memo falls short. The only explanation for its new policies is that the executive order required the adoption of the policies. But as numerous courts have held, the fact that you did something is not a good justification for doing something. In other words, you can't have circular justifications. Now, even if the Bureau of Prisons may incorporate the executive order into its own memos, they're deficient. Now, the court takes no position on the goals, but here's what the order says. Here's the goals: to promote dignity, safety, and well-being of women, as well as scientific inquiry, public safety, morale, and trust in government. They want to combat the spread of gender ideology, which is destructive, and the immutable biological reality of sex in favor of an identity-based, inchoate social concept. Now, the court takes no position on this goal. You kind of are. But even if you take it at its face, it has anything little to do with eliminating gender-affirming care. In other words, if you cancel their treatment, how does that actually help them or help you, the government? By taking hormone medications, they're not interested in propagating any particular ideology. They're just experiencing personal anguish. And so we have to make sure they're not experiencing personal anguish by handing them all of these privileges and benefits for their conditions. Now, to be sure, agency action is not arbitrary and capricious just because it's bad for some people. But what you've done here is not shown their own justification, and they need to show more before it's going to be valid. They also say there's going to be irreparable harm. If you don't give them the T's, Alicia is going to turn back into Alan, and it's not going to be good for anybody. The defendants argue that they have not alleged irreparable harm because they're getting their hormones. But it suffices to say that their therapy is at best tenuous. They might lose it. Kapoor says they might lose theirs. And there's other vagaries and vicissitudes in this litigation that you might use to attack these inmates who are receiving this treatment. Now, when Mr. Nichols and Ms. Kingdom's access to hormone therapy was restored, there is a likelihood, a possibility that there's going to be an ongoing deprivation. And this is a medical reality, saying that this is medically necessary, somebody said. So they say it's medically necessary, which means you have to continue to give it to them. Now, the only arguments from the Trump people is that, well, not everybody needs these treatments. And they say, well, some people do. At least some people do need these, and at least some people will be irreparably harmed if they don't get their jabs. So the balance of the equities weigh in favor of the T's. They say, in the case at hand, the BOP says it is providing hormone therapy to over 600 gender dysphoric inmates. Just amazing. Therefore, the defendants cannot even credibly claim that this is going to be a financial burden. They say you're incurring that burden anyways. Well, it's like, we'd like to cancel that. That's kind of the point. It's kind of why we're making these changes. They're all getting cut off. Now, the only deleterious public effect on this is you're going to have to continue to pay, but you're already paying, so who cares? We've got a lot of interest in letting this play out. Democracy is not as simple as Trump gets elected and gets to become the president. We're the president too. That's why we have courts, is what he says, giving himself a nice pat on the back. So the court is going to grant the preliminary injunction and certify the class and appoint class counsel all in one fell swoop. So here's the class certification, right? At least the judge did this. Said, okay, there are lots of T's. They're all pretty common and have typical claims. If we certify it as a class, it's going to adequately represent the class's interest. And so it's certified under the rules. And so class action, and Trump is not going to be dismissed as a defendant. They say, and he hates Trump, says Trump argues that the president should be dismissed because he's immune from injunctive relief. Now, the plaintiffs respond that even though they don't seek to enjoin the president, declaratory relief against the president is still available. And so the court agrees with the T's, saying, I'm going to keep Trump on here so I can make declarations against him. Now, during the pendency of this litigation, the Bureau of Prisons is required to give them their hormones. And moreover, if anybody subsequently determines that they need treatments, you may not take any treatment options off the table while this dispute is pending. So they get, man, like it's like a whole pharmacy now. Actually, I'm going to need that and that and that and that and that and that. Just inject me. The import of the opinion is essentially this. Under the rules, the prison may not arbitrarily deprive inmates of medications or other lifestyle accommodations, all right, that its own medical staff have deemed to be medically appropriate without considering the implications of that decision. Even if they did support a decision of an action, may nevertheless be constrained in the reasoning. Its freedom of action may nevertheless be constrained by the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. Wow. He says, but that is a matter left for another day, whether that be at a later stage of litigation or another case entirely. Wow. So the next step is this is cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment if the T's don't get their hormone treatments. Could be a constitutional problem, but we're not there yet because all their other claims are more valid. So for the foregoing reasons, the T's win and their motion is granted. We'll see if the Trump administration appeals this. I would imagine they do, especially as to the president and the fact that he is still listed as a defendant on here. I'm sure they're going to want to clear that up. So the Trump administration is making clear that they're not going to be endorsing this type of ideology. The other thing they're not going to be endorsing are proclamations for certain months. And here is what Caroline Leavitt said when she was asked about that today.
Does the president have any plans on making a proclamation, or is it just going to be June this year?
Well, there are no plans for a proclamation for the month of June, but I can tell you this president is very proud to be a president for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed.
All right, so no proclamations coming out of the White House this month. Now, we're taking a look at people like Roy C. Lamberth. Federal district judges have gone wild. Senator Kennedy is obliterating a professor, contrasting her current statements with prior statements in this beautiful exchange.
Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure what if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months abuse. No.
I've read your stuff and I've read your writings. I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions.
Of course not.
You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids.
No doubt about it. And her justification for all of this comes out when she gets into it with Senator Josh Hawley. Hawley, of course, is noting what we've been noting and covering here, music to our ears, that there are an onslaught of injunctions that are lobbed against President Trump that just emerged out of nowhere. Their response is always, well, Trump is just extra bad. But when injunctions were issued against Joe, right, the rules, in other words, the tools, the mechanisms are good as long as they decide to use them, which is very convenient of an argument for them. Here is what Hawley said.
Really only once Trump came into office for the first time. You don't think this is a little bit anomalous? You don't think that's a little bit strange?
A very plausible explanation, Senator, you have to consider is that he is engaged in much more lawless activity than other presidents, right?
You don't think
you must
this was never
possibility.
used before the 1960s, and suddenly Democrat judges decide we love the nationwide injunction, and then when Biden comes to office, no, actually.
It's Republican appointees as well, Senator, and the 1960s is where some scholars sort of locate the beginning of this, but
identify one
others,
before then?
Mila Sohoni, who's another scholar of universal injunction, suggests 1913 is actually the first. There were others in the 20s.
The Republic endured for 150 years before there was a nationwide injunction.
Well, the federal government was doing a lot less until 100 years ago. So there's many things that have changed in the last 100 or the last 50 years.
So long as it is a Democrat president in office, then we should have no nationwide injunctions. If it's a Republican president, then this is absolutely fine, warranted, and called for. How can our system of law survive on those principles, Professor?
I think a system in which there are no meaningful constraints on the president is a very dangerous system
That's
of law.
not what you thought when Joe Biden. That is not what you thought when Joe Biden was president.
Every president
you
is
said that is
constrained
not what
and
you
must
said.
be. Absolutely.
You said it was a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law. You also said
the Supreme Court senator agreed 9-0 with me on that.
You also said when Joe Biden was president, you said the idea that anyone would foreign shop to get a judge who would issue a nationwide injunction was just judges looking like politicians in robes. Again, it threatened the underlying legal system. People were just trying to get the result they wanted. It was a travesty for the rule of law. But you're fine with all of that if it's getting the result that you want.
Sir, the Supreme Court agreed unanimously with me in that case, right? There was no standing. The case should never have been allowed to proceed. And the combination of parties without standing and the single-judge division.
No. We're talking. No, they did not. They did not issue a ruling on the nationwide injunction. You criticized the injunction nationwide. Listen,
issued in a case where no one had standing.
Here's the thing.
All right, so you can see it's whatever suits them and their arguments at the current time to achieve their end game and their objectives, which is the right way to be a lawyer or litigator, right? This is why we get so frustrated with the Kilmar case when the DOJ, with the fired attorney, Iraz Ruvani, when he comes out and he just says, yeah, we made a mistake or an administrative error or whatever it is. Yeah, you use the tools you have in front of you and you use them against your opponent to achieve your objectives at the end of the day. She's a professor. She's obviously sharp. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's a partisan liberal attack person who is explaining both sides of the same issue. This is why when they are used against us, they're bad. This is why when we use them against you, they're good. It's the same argument we've seen repeatedly. But Ted Cruz comes out and he, I think, also responds nicely here, walking us through the fact that these injunctions that are being issued are largely coming out of a certain number of districts. And we've covered a lot of them here And they do tend to emerge out of certain districts. In the particular, some of the ones we've covered are Washington, D.C., Maryland, Massachusetts, Northern District of California, and others, Southern District of New York. But this is Ted Cruz lacing in to a liberal professor over her biased standards when it comes to federal injunctions.
Interesting, as our Democrat colleagues defend these nationwide injunctions, that neither of them made any reference to the fact that the number of nationwide injunctions issued in the first 4 months is greater than the entire 20th century and is greater than all of the nationwide injunctions issued against Bush, Obama, and Biden combined, nor did they address the disturbing fact that of the 40 universal injunctions that have been issued in the last 4 months, 35 of them came from the same 5 judicial districts.
Interesting.
There is a reason for this.
Yep.
Blue state attorneys general and radical leftist groups are seeking out affirmatively radical judges who they know will impose their own policy preferences. If it were simply, as our Democrat colleagues said, judges following the law, then you wouldn't have to keep going to the same radical judges over and over and over again, because judges across the board should do that. But the litigants know exactly who the zealots are that are on the bench, and that's who they are seeking out. I will also point out that the discussion about the urgency of protecting the safety of judges. Listen, I agree. We should protect the safety of every federal judge, but it is interesting because my Democrat colleagues were utterly silent during 4 years of the Biden administration when you had violent mobs outside the homes of Supreme Court justices unhappy with the Supreme Court's ruling in Dobbs, and the Biden Justice Department refused to enforce federal law and protect the justices. And my Democrat colleagues were perfectly happy with Supreme Court justices being threatened if they disliked the rulings that were coming from the Supreme Court justices.
Yep, outside Kavanaugh's
Unlike
house.
my colleagues, I believe we should protect judges regardless of whether I agree with them or not. We should protect their safety. And every time you hear a Democrat senator talk about protecting judges from acts of violence, you ought to ask them, why did they not have a word to say about the Biden Justice Department allowing mobs to threaten the families and children of Supreme Court justices night after night after night, while Biden's Attorney General refused to follow the law? And with that, I'll recognize...
Because that was Democrat justice. That was social activism. The judges were just hearing from the people. That was free speech rights. And all of these judges who were issuing injunctions against Trump are doing it because they're good people who just honor the Constitution. It's not the idea that they're born in foreign countries who were appointed by Joe Biden, who used to be Canadians 10 minutes ago, and then come in here and say, you're bringing back USAID, like Judge Amir Ali did, or like Judge Chutkan, who comes in and tries to prosecute and incarcerate Trump and then issues executive orders against, injunctions against his executive orders. The list goes on and on. We've covered many of them here, but the judges are part of the legal attack vector that the Democrats have been building for years, which is why they're so hysterical about the ABA losing its special privileges, about all of these mega law firms losing their coveted contracts with the federal government. It's such a loss for them when they can't be embedded with the power structure. And that's why they're throwing a fit about it. And all the judges and their friends and their family members who are getting their NGO money cut off are part of the insurrection. So Ted Cruz, Holly, and Kennedy, we appreciate them calling out these judges. And we're getting ready. We're bracing for a lot more of this because they've got decades of general institutional power that they've built up as Democrats, as lawyers, and we're watching it being executed right now. I think this is really kind of their failsafe here. They've lost everything. So the judiciary is their final stand. We're going to be here covering this and more. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now let's talk about Alina Habba getting sued. Alina Habba sued by the mayor of New Jersey, the mayor of a New Jersey city called Ras Baraka. Now, you see in this lawsuit, filed in the District of New Jersey. It's a federal lawsuit. He's suing Alina Habba and Ricky Patel for a civil claim that we'll get into. But what's interesting here is Alina Habba had an indication that this was coming. Said, shocking, a leak from Mayor Baraka's team. She posted this yesterday saying he's planning to sue the feds. Now, my advice to the mayor, feel free to join me in prioritizing violent crime and public safety, or you can just come out and do a little press conference and sue me. Now, far better use of the time for the citizens of New Jersey if you want, or you could just do this. You could have your attorney come out and just kind of lecture people while you stand there in the background as the mayor just kind of pouting. I think he's pouting. What is this? I'm suing. Yeah. We're going to check out what was being reported from CBS New York on this.
Breaking news, Newark Mayor Ross Baraka is suing the acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey over his arrest at a Newark ICE facility earlier this month. The steps that were taken just this morning. Good afternoon, I'm Cindy Hsu. Now on air and streaming on CBS News New York. We begin with that breaking news. Newark Mayor Ross Baraka is suing the acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba. Baraka's attorney says Habba violated the mayor's constitutional rights when he was taken into custody on a trespassing charge at Delaney Hall earlier this month. The federal lawsuit also accuses Habba of defamation for comments she made about the case.
She said he willingly chose to disregard the law, which is false. And later that night, she went on Fox and again made false statements.
I just want to say this is not about revenge or not about me going after individuals because I think they've wronged me specifically. Ultimately, I think this is about them taking accountability for what has happened to me.
Ricky Patel, the Homeland Security Investigations agent in charge in Newark, has also been named in the lawsuit. Habba reacted to word of the lawsuit, saying in a statement, "My advice to the mayor, feel free to join me in prioritizing violent crime and public safety." We'll have much more on this story coming up later on CBS News New York, starting at 5.
All right, so that's their statement on it, and they are now fighting back, I suppose. Here's what the lawsuit looks like that was submitted in the District of New Jersey, saying the plaintiff is the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. Defendant Alina Habba, she's the interim U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey, now being sued. The jurisdiction happening in the district court for the District of New Jersey. Here are the facts. They say, as the duly elected mayor of Newark, Mayor Baraka has an obligation to promote health and safety. Baraka and Newark and our inspectors have been repeatedly thwarted in our efforts to enforce the laws. So then they say there's a GEO group. It's a private prison group. They have a contract with ICE, and they say that they've denied access to Newark officials to their facility for many reasons. Now, exercising his rights under the First Amendment, Mayor Ross Baraka, a Democrat, made many public statements expressing his view that the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution guarantees all persons, including immigrants, the right to due process. They got it. They get a certain version of that. They get plenty of due process when they get arrested and removed. They want them to have due process plus, just to be clear. They already get due process. And has vocally opposed the abuse and mistreatment of immigrants, which nobody's abusing or mistreating them. They're being deported because they're in our country illegally. Mayor Baraka was alarmed when the GEO group allowed Homeland to house detainees in a building without the required inspections or certificate of occupancy. He sought to ensure the safety and health of residents, which is his duty as mayor. Now, defendant Alina Habba has made her biased political goals explicit, he says. Days before being sworn in, she attacked Cory Booker and Phil Murphy, saying that they have failed the state of New Jersey, which is true. That's not an attack. It's just a true statement. On March 28th, the day she was sworn in as U.S. attorney, Alina Habba announced her plan to use the power of the office of the U.S. attorney to help one-party Republicans Trump. She said, we could turn New Jersey red. Hopefully, while I'm there, I can help that cause. The day she was sworn in. These goals are antithetical to her role and her ethical obligations as a U.S. attorney. Now, days after being sworn in, Habba also said on Fox News that she would be investigating New Jersey's governor and his appointed attorney general. Well, after breaking the law, they said that New Jersey's lawful immigrant trust directive is thwarting Trump's policies. Habba claimed that the governor and the AG were interfering in her efforts to take all criminals out of the country, which, yeah, is what she's there to do. Oh, they say apparently except her former client, convicted felon, Donald Trump. Oh, man, they're so mad and bitter. Convicted felon by Judge Merchan in that fake criminal trial that's on appeal. It's probably going to get reversed once the Court of Appeals accepts the removal. He should have never been prosecuted. And what was his penalty for that conviction? Oh, yeah, complete and total discharge. Oh, hilarious. But they wanted that so hard so that they can just say that. Apparently, except for her former client. All right, man, she's rounding up you, the governor, everybody. So you're on notice. So just get ready. On May 9th, 3 members of the House of Representatives, this person, and LaMonica, Body Slam LaMonica, they showed up for an inspection. Members of Congress have an absolute legal right to inspect all facilities. Yeah, but the mayor doesn't. What are you bringing up her for? Congressman MacGyver invited Baraka to come join. Numerous media companies and other individuals were there, many of whom watched the event. So did we. And just to be clear, we saw that on Fox News there. Now, on the afternoon on May 9th, other people also got there. They were escorted inside the gate, and they kept waiting. Then at 1:42, Mayor Baraka arrived at Delaney Hall, spoke to some members of the public outside the gate. 1:46, many of the members of the public gathered outside the fence and the gate, began chanting that the mayor should be allowed to join the members of Congress. At 1:50, the GEO group guard at the gate invited Mayor Baraka to enter the inside the fence of Delaney Hall, stating, "It's going to calm the crowd if you let me in." So the guard opened the gate and invited him in. So he went inside. Then he just calmly waited just a few feet inside the fence. Then someone else named Patel, who doesn't represent the owner of the property, approached him, told him to leave. Even though someone else invited him in, he was told to leave. Then he said, "What? I was invited in." He said, "I don't care. Now you're gone." Now, then defendant and Baraka were speaking at 2:36. Members of Congress saw Baraka through the windows and walked to speak with him. Then from 2:36 to 2:38, members of Congress spoke with defendant Patel, stated, "We've been waiting for an hour." He said, "Well, if you're here, I'm going to arrest you. I'm going to arrest you," said defendant Patel. Good for him. The mayor said, "Okay, I'm leaving now." Patel responded, "Okay, go." The mayor and the congresswoman immediately walked to the gate at 2:38. While standing near the gate, Coleman attempted to pass the congresswoman a cell phone. When it fell, Baraka reached down to help her pick it up. After Baraka assisted the congresswoman to retrieve her cell phone, the guard opened the gate. He complied with the order to leave, and they joined. Then they went to the holding room. Someone overheard the plan to arrest the mayor and saw many agents approaching the gate towards the mayor. The members of Congress then walked with the agents through the open gate to join the mayor outside on the public property. About 5 minutes later, after Baraka left the property, 20 agents, armed en masse, descended on the mayor and members of Congress without any attempt to calm fears or ensure peace. So they started it, got it. Egged on by Patel, who ordered them to take him down, meaning violently tackle him, Patel, because he's getting sued too, not Cash, but someone else. The agents pushed, shoved, and assaulted the mayor's team and members of Congress before violently pulling his arms and arresting him without probable cause. Now, agents then handcuffed the mayor behind his back in an effort to effect maximum humiliation for her, and she called it later a petty offense. This is what Alina gets for dismissing the charges. Should have prosecuted him too. At 3:07, Homeland representatives left the hall with Baraka, brought him to another facility where he was subjected to being photographed for a mugshot and fingerprinted. Then agents interviewed Baraka for 30 minutes. He said, "I was invited." At 3:05, before he had been transported from Delaney, hours before the attorney had filed a complaint and before the mayor had been fingerprinted, Habba issued a false and defamatory statement on her personal account. So we'll see. We're going to see what the actual complaint and the allegations are. Saying the mayor of Newark committed trespass and ignored multiple warnings. That will not stand. He's been taken into custody. No one's above the law. She issued the statement, authorized the false arrest despite clear evidence that he had not committed the petty offense of defiant trespass. In authorizing the arrest without proper legal grounds, she was acting for political reasons, saying that she participated later in a telephone interview where she also made statements, right? So she hopped on probably Fox or something. Following the events, then they conspired to promote other statements. Then they sent Trisha McLaughlin, who we talk a lot about here. She hits the media a lot, appeared on CNN and made the following statements saying the mayor did this, multiple people arrested, blah, blah, blah. So the government is now making defamatory statements, I guess. They're not suing her though. Defendants Habba and Patel conspired with others to create a false affidavit stating that there was some version of trespass. He left the hall without or when ordered to do so. And so all of this was made with malice. And they increased his time in custody, and he had his initial appearance in federal court virtually and actually showed up in court. He was subjected to pretrial services interviews. They invaded his privacy, with extremely intrusive and demeaning questions about his personal life and history. Yeah, just like the entire federal government did to the right for the last 4 years. Yeah, it sucks when you get arrested, doesn't it? Because you think you're doing something right. You think you're doing something that's politically protected. It sucks, doesn't it? When someone else just takes total power and abuses it, according to you. And I'm not saying that Alina Habba did that, but yeah, it sucks, didn't it? And they did that to the entire right for 4 years. Now, on May 15th, Mayor Baraka attended a status conference. Habba was also there. As part of the demeaning process, although Mayor Baraka had already been photographed, U.S. Marshals took the mayor to the basement and they further humiliated him by taking his photographs and his fingerprints again. After video of the public showing that Habba and Patel had lied, falsely arrested and maliciously prosecuted Baraka, she threatened him with more false charges, claiming that she would charge him with resisting arrest if he didn't give up his right to sue for attorney's fees. As terms of a plea deal, you have to give up certain rights. Like you're going to just take a plea deal. You give up something in order for the government giving up something. If the government's going to charge you and they decide not to, then you give up something, which is to sue the government. And you kind of come to terms. Now, on May 19th, 10 days after that, she moved to dismiss the charges, right? So it sounds like there was probably a verbal conversation about this. Let's see what they say. In granting the motion, Judge Espinoza admonished the office for the handling of this matter. No one cares what that judge says. So he says, okay, so count one. Violation of Fourth Amendment rights, false arrest against Alina Habba and Ricky Patel, I guess in their individual capacities, not as government employees who have immunity to a qualified level. Plaintiff repeats and incorporates all this, says the Fourth Amendment says rights against illegal seizures and arrests. Baraka was falsely arrested without probable cause. The petty crime of defiant trespass requires that the accused refuses to leave. And Baraka did leave after being asked to do so. He was on private property, so there was no probable cause and the arrest was unlawful. Now, that happens all the time. And cops conduct arrests and happens all the time. There's qualified immunity and the cops don't generally pay out for those things, but also mayors are not generally arrested either. Now, defendant Patel, apparently in consultation with Habba and others, ordered the arrest despite clear evidence. Now, so this is kind of now an evidentiary thing. Are you sure apparently in consultation? Patel did that? So Patel is responsible, apparently in consultation with Habba. So you're roping her in and you don't even know that there's causation that connects the two there. Defendant Habba acting outside of any prosecutorial function. There it is. So she's not, right? She is just like a cop who's grossly negligent, right? Who acts outside of the lawful capability to act. They're saying she was not doing any of this. She was basically abusing her power, broadcasting defamatory statements and more. These are unreasonable seizures. And while the U.S. Supreme Court has said there are special factors to consider, this is plainly unlawful. Says defendant Habba was not serving in a prosecutorial function when she ordered the arrest, allegedly. There was no functional tie to the judicial process, and saying prosecutors are not entitled to absolute immunity. No, but they got a lot of it. Seeking to generate evidence in support of an arrest means she does not have immunity. As a result of this false arrest, he's had reputational harm and emotional damage. Of course he has. Count 2. Same thing. Violation of Fourth Amendment rights for malicious prosecution, incorporating the same. She was acting outside the bounds of prosecutorial immunity. It was unjustified. The government was forced to dismiss the charges. They were forced to. They probably came to negotiated terms with you that you're now violating, probably a handshake deal. Okay, we'll drop it. You're good. And now he's suing her. So they suffered severe reputational harm, of course, and emotional damage, and suing Alina personally for defamation. Made false and defamatory statements saying that accused him of a crime, which is defamation per se, and did it with actual malice intended to harm his reputation. He's a public figure, but she did it with actual malice. And so what do they want? We don't know. There's no number on it. Compensatory damages for pain, suffering, stress, humiliation, mental anguish, emotional damage, personal physical injury, physical sickness. He's sick. What happened? As well as damage to his reputation. He wants punitive damages, attorney's fees, interest, reimbursement for taxes, and everything else. Signed by Nancy Erica Smith. And so that is going out against Alina Habba. We were seeing if Alina was going to respond to this today. Only thing we've got from her thus far is she had a great day meeting with federal and local law enforcement partners to discuss safety protocols in New Jersey, saying, we are prepared to find and prosecute all crimes in the state, including illegal drone activity. Fly a drone and find out, says Alina. So that's happening there. The Representative Monica McIver case, the other woman who was there body slamming federal agents, said that she was going to be defending this case. She's got a virtual appearance coming up that looks like rescheduled, and the rest of the case is pretty much quiet right now. So U.S. attorneys now coming in on the case. Mark J. McCarran happening there. And of course, Alina's case will get assigned to a judge. Let's see if that has happened yet. Yes, referred to James B. Clark in New Jersey. So we'll keep our eye on this lawsuit and see what Alina says in response. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, good stuff on that one. Now let's talk about Joe Biden's latest Autopen investigation, which is now heating up. The Autopen scandal now getting more scrutiny, this time from the Department of Justice, saying that they're going to examine the pardons specifically. And the email, the person who's revealing all of this is, of course, the one and only Ed Martin. DOJ pardon attorney sent an email. Reuters got their hand on it, saying the investigation involves whether Biden was competent and whether others were taking advantage of him through the use of the Autopen or other means. Now, we know what the Autopen is. The email from Martin stated that the investigation is focused on preemptive pardons that Biden issued to several members of his family and clemency that spared 37 federal inmates from the death penalty and more. Biden, just as he relinquished the presidency on January 20th, pardoned 5 members of his family. Remember that? We're all like, oh, saying he wanted to protect them from future politically motivated investigations. They went to his siblings, James, Frank, and Valerie, and their spouses, John Owens and Sarah Biden. Biden on December 1 also then pardoned his son, Hunter, who he swore he was never going to do. Martin's email did not specify which pardons of the Biden family members were being investigated. It also did not make clear who directed Martin to launch the investigation. A DOJ spokesman did not immediately respond to a request for comment, neither did Biden's people. Trump has made expensive use of a clemency, okay, because he's competent. Martin was the previous U.S. attorney, and now the investigation is underway. Peter Doocy got to ask the White House about this, and here is what Caroline Leavitt said in response.
Looks different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there. Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
It's very interesting. Very interesting props. If you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look, I would like to do that. The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the Autopen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the Autopen, something that I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
Is there any concern that this president, who won the election on a promise to fix the economy and close the border, that focusing and scrutinizing these Biden pardons is looking into the past instead of looking forward?
I think in comparison to the amount of time this president has spent on securing the border, on fixing our economy, I just read out for you an entire list of economic accomplishments. Look at the border numbers. Look at the time and effort he's divulged into solving the global conflicts abroad. It pales in comparison, but it still, nevertheless, is a very important issue. And it was a huge issue that sent the president back to this White House. The Americans saw with their own eyes a mentally incompetent president, and they want answers for that, and the president believes they should have them.
And something that just crossed, Caroline, how mad do you think President Trump is going to be when he finds out that Elon Musk said, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it."
Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he's sticking to it. Cameron.
All right, so the Autopen investigation is definitely interesting, and the Oversight Committee has given us another drop on this. I'm sorry, the Oversight Project, not the committee. This is a project that you can find on X at itsyourgov. And they've done a couple other parts to this. They just dropped part 3. They say the Autopen presidency part 3. Why was the Biden White House autopenning boatloads of pardons and commutations while the president was in D.C.? We got receipts. And they wrote a full blog post on this saying, yep, there's the Autopen. We got 2 signatures, a little bit different. But these came from executive orders that were also issued by Autopen, right? So it's not just the pardons. This is anti-drug trafficking executive order, Sudan sanctions, Russia sanctions, Autopen, Zimbabwe sanctions, COVID-19 vaccine repeals signed, rules for court-martial, all signed by Autopen. Now, 2/3 of the Autopen pardons, including ones for the members of the J6 committee, Biden's family members, Fauci, Milley, Iranian spies, and others, occurred when Biden was physically located in Washington, D.C. Okay, so he was there. He could have signed them by hand. Based on the dates, here's the numbers. President Biden Autopen pardons while physically present in D.C. Why does he need to Autopen them? Total pardons 2020, I guess that's 9. Signed with Autopen 6. Signed with Autopen when Biden was in D.C. First in 2022. 0%. So he signed them by hand. Or signed them when he was not in D.C. Then it changes. Okay, 2023, 24, and 25. Now, every single one that was when he was in D.C. was still signed with an Autopen. All right, so like 100%. So why did he sign them in the first year in 2022 and then did not sign them in years 3, 4, and 5. How come that happened? Very curious. Oversight Committee says every single Autopen commutation, including ones that removed the death sentences of nearly every inmate on death row and freed Iranian spies, was issued while Biden was physically present in Washington, D.C. Here's a look at the tables right there. Now, in fact, the only Autopen pardons that were issued when Biden was not in D.C. were the 6 pardons issued while Biden was golfing with his family in the Virgin Islands. Now, given that Biden had clear cognitive decline, this raises additional questions. And they put together a nice blog post on this that shows some more details. Lots of people in there. They're going to keep posting about it. They're over at itsyourgov.org, and you can, of course, check that out. Now, Senator Marsha Blackburn was also excited about this. Says, thank you to the DOJ for investigating the Autopen. Every single American deserves to know who was running this country while Biden was asleep at the wheel. We also saw this from Ducey. He was explaining more after, I think, the exchange with Caroline.
The ones at the last minute where we were sitting in the booth, looking at our computer screens, waiting for the transfer of power, when we started getting all these emails. Here's one for Mark Milley. Here's one for the whole Biden family. Here's a separate one for Hunter. Were those all done with President Biden's knowledge? That is something that the Justice Department is now investigating. Would love to find out why they are so sure that there is something to that. Jackie?
All great questions. We are awaiting those answers.
Yes, we definitely are. We also have Josh Hawley, who is here, and Hawley got asked about this by Sean Hannity.
Do you believe that you should call in the Biden family? Should Joe Biden? Should Hunter Biden? Should Jim Biden all be called in?
I think we've got to let this investigation go where the facts lead it. I mean, we've got to follow the truth here, something that was not done for the last 4 years. And I will just say the Bidens have always gotten off the hook. You know, you think about Hunter Biden, his many crimes. I mean, he was one of the guys pardoned, obviously, by his father in those closing days. Yeah. They always were held to a different standard, a double standard. I think it's time for the end to the double standard. Let's get the truth for once. Let's actually get the truth and go where that leads us.
Well, we hope so. That you get there, Josh Hawley. Now, here was one more exchange from Miranda Devine, who's been doing some awesome work on this. Carly Bonney clipped this one over for us as well. Here was Miranda Devine on with Fox.
Recently, he's from Arizona, a former child actor, has been with the Bidens since 2008. Why is he important in this story, Miranda?
Bernal.
Hi, Bill. Well, Anthony Bernal is really the one aide that Jill Biden trusted so much. And as Jake Tapper has told us in his new book, Jill Biden is one of the most powerful first ladies in history. And that made her chief of staff, her personal factotum, Anthony Bernal, very important. He was one of only 2 aides who was allowed into the Biden home in Delaware during the campaign, you know, when Joe Biden was hiding in his basement under the cover of the COVID pandemic. Also, in the waning days of Joe Biden's presidency, it was Anthony Bernal was one of only 4 aides allowed into the Rehoboth Beach holiday house where Joe Biden and Jill Biden were making the decision whether or not he would step aside from re-election. So along with probably Hunter Biden, Anthony Bernal also knew Hunter Biden and got on well with him. He was sort of the protector of Biden's secrets. And he also propped up Jill Biden from her very earliest days as you know, the vice presidential wife, second wife, and then to being, of course, the first lady. And he used to pick out her outfits, organise her Vogue covers, and also travelled with her overseas, especially when, towards the end of Joe Biden's presidency, Jill Biden was travelling around on Air Force One solo, and she had Bernal always at her side. I saw him and his sort of obsequious behaviour towards her on a couple of occasions, most particularly during Hunter Biden's trial in Delaware, when he was just glued to her side at every moment, and including flying back to France for 24 hours so she could appear at a public event with Joe Biden.
Yeah. So this relationship goes back 16 years at least, and very close to based on your description.
We looked up obsequious, obedient or attentive to an excessive or servile degree. Great word from Miranda.
Obsequious.
Obsequious.
Where was Jill Biden about a month ago on The View?
I was with Joe day and night. I saw him more than any other person. I woke up with him. I went to bed at night with him. So I saw him all throughout the day. And I did not create a cocoon around him. I mean, you saw him in the Oval Office. You saw him making speeches. He wasn't hiding somewhere. I didn't have him, sequestered in some place.
So what you
Yes,
found
you
in
did.
your reporting, Miranda, what do you think about that comment? And is Bernal the type of individual that would answer questions that Republicans are looking for?
Well, I mean, it's laughable what Jill Biden is saying. You just have to contrast Joe Biden's availability to the media compared to Donald Trump's. In the Oval Office, he barely gave any speeches, any press conferences. He even flubbed the Super Bowl interviews, which could not be easier. So that doesn't pass the sniff test. As for Anthony Bernal answering questions, he's been subpoenaed by James Comer, one of 5 aides, to answer questions on exactly this. So he really doesn't have any choice about whether he answers questions. He will be compelled to at least show up.
Okay. Miranda, we will see.
Great stuff. Miranda Devine, you know where to find her on X. And we appreciate her digging in on the Bernal story and Bernal's obsequious connection and relationship with Jill. Oh, gosh. Are they indicting each other too? All right. So we're going to keep our eye on this. The DOJ digging into it. Congress is digging into it. Ron Johnson, Chuck Grassley, they want to know more. James Comer wants to know more. The walls are crumbling in. Remember they used to say that every day? The walls are crumbling in. This time, though, it might be happening because they're liars and everybody knows it. Even Jake Tapper is out there admitting it. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, my friends. What a beautiful day and a beautiful stream it has been. If you're just joining us, my apologies for misconnecting the tubes today. So we missed our Rumble friends. We missed our X friends. It turns out it's my bad. But we'll get the streams up and the clips up immediately. So, my friends, thank you for supporting our work. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about today. Then we'll hear from you. We talked about Roy C. Lamberth, the judge out of D.C., who has now said the transitions are back on. If you're somebody named Alicia and you're afraid you're going to turn back into an Allen, you don't have to be worried about that anymore if you're a federal prisoner. Also, you're a class action now, and also you've got lawyers appointed by the judges, like this guy, Roy C. Lamberth. So we read through that. We heard some great clips from Kennedy, Holly, and Cruz bringing you the news. And then we talked about Alina Habba. She's getting sued, man, and it's coming at her from a mayor. And so as the interim U.S. attorney, it's coming after her personally. We're going to see what she says in response to this, whether she's got qualified immunity, how they shatter that immunity, what goes on in New Jersey, and it should be a spicy case. So we'll keep our eye on that one. We also then talked about Biden and the DOJ investigating him, or at least the Autopen pardon scandal, and we're hopeful that Congress and the executive get to the bottom of it with haste. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. And thank you for being here. Thanks for being amazing friends of the show. And thank you for subscribing and joining us. And thanks for sending in these amazing donos that we see here. Wow, what's up, Donut? Clipping for us. We've got a great way to start this one with Taco Tuesday. A great Taco Tuesday is happy, yummy, full of good tacos. Good tacos to you. Whether it's pupusa, whether it's squid that comes from Japan, whatever you're enjoying today, we hope you enjoy it a lot. What's up, Chubby says. So she drops charges against him and he sues her. Sounds like charges need to be filed ASAP. Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that now because then it looks like it's vindictive. But exactly, yeah, she kind of feels like maybe she had a handshake deal. Or maybe not. Maybe he was always going to sue. She offered him a plea deal. He said, no, I'm not going to take that. I'm not signing away any of these things. And she said, okay, well, I'll dismiss the charges anyways. And he retained his rights and he's suing her. That could be an option. Hey, what's up? John McGarvey. Thank you, John McGarvey, for sending in this donation. Oh, John McGarvey, now the president of South Africa. John, good to have you. Hey, what's up, Cappy? The best way to make a hormone, like the kind you inject into your body, is by not paying her. But it's definitely, I think, beyond a PG-13 joke for the show. Thank you. Kellen Miller, why do you want to be named Alicia Kingdom? Deep voice. Because I'm a princess, and this is how it manifests in my being. Okay. All right, Princess Alicia Kingdom. All right. Yeah, here are your panties, Alicia. Try not to murder anybody on the way back to the cell. Hey, Dome Baril, prison inmates claiming they suffered from gender dysphoria and demanding we fund their self-treatment for a psychological disorder defines tyranny. It's just like wild times. Yeah. And now the judges are weighing in on panty decisions and the rest of them. Golly. Thank you, Dome. Yeah. And it's like this, yeah, the whole tea thing is just really wild. Fred Pedamonte. And that's why I've never wore underwear, says Fred. Oh, gosh. Is that illegal, Fred? Maybe we should get an injunction so you can wear some underwear. Someone file a lawsuit so Fred puts some underwear on. Go to Judge Boasberg. I don't care. All right, just kidding, Fred. Hey, have a good one. Sometimes it's more comfortable. It depends on the context, I suppose. It's fair. Depends where you are. Are you at the grocery store right now? All right. Knox, happy Taco Tuesday, all. Menace jail, don't even get boxers and binders, can totally be used to eliminate someone from like an Epstein. Women get wife beaters, not bras as well for the same reason. These judges have obviously never been to a real jail. Watching Netflix doesn't count. Yeah, it's like, well, first of all, if that dude wants some panties to make him feel like a woman, well, like what color panties? These don't really bring out the blush in the makeup cosmetics that you're providing me too. I only like panties with sequins on them, and my skin is sensitive, or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Someone tell Judge Royce Lamberth that it's not satiating enough for their experience. Thank you for that, Knox. Ridiculous. Tanya C. Great to see you, Tanya C. Laszlo Puent. Great to see you. New members. Grab the members only stream from this morning. It was a lot of fun. We ate some squid from Japan at the end of the stream this morning. It was a wild experience. Former LEO. Couldn't they just evaluate the sentence, give them a computation, march them to the front gates, and kick them out? A commutation? Yeah, but I think some of these people, like, we don't even know what they've done. Like, we don't even know who Alicia Kingdom is. Who is this person? What's their prior background? Did the judge talk about why they're in jail at all in the entire motion? At all? Like, oh, this person's going to be in here for the next 40 years, or this person's going to get out in a couple of years. Like, we didn't hear that at all. This person's going to get out in a couple of years, and once they're out, then, you know, anything that is not transition here, if they become permanently Alan, then they can't be Alicia again. So, but they're going to be out in 4 years, so the harm, so just extend it for 4. No, it's like indefinite. They're transed up indefinitely, no matter what. They get a whole pharmacy if they want them. So why would that be? Like, you don't want to give them a commutation, so go out there and murder someone else or are someone else. What crimes were they charged with? No one even knows. But they're T's, so that matters more than anything else. Hey, what's up? Wes Downer. Thank you, Wes, for bringing in 10 membos. Great time to become a member. We had a lot of fun this morning. Mexican Marauder, what's up? Odin Customs, Neil Decker, Catherine Velarde, what's up, Young Mac, Dan Simpson, Lee Warren, what's up, NMF Flyer Robin, The Patriarchy is here, Rev68, all gifted membos, courtesy of Wes Downer. Thank you, Wes, for doing that. We appreciate you. Hey, Bruce Rice is here. Just so you know, Rob, Suno moderates your speech, LOL. I guess I can't call people out by name in a song. Oh, no. So I can't say something about Big Fanny or Big Tish. The two ladies trying to get rich, whatever it is, you know. What is it? I don't know. We can't say their names. Knox Bierman. Everyone in jail gets tidy whities or tidy orangies, as is the case in Houston County Jail. Well, not the T's anymore, Knox. The T's are now going to get sequins with special lace or something. What's up, Clark Blount? Thank you, Clark, for bringing in 10 membos. We got this one. Leo Driscoll. Bobby, what's up? Pure chaos in Texas. Jess Tex. What's up, Jess Tex? John Hancock. Simply Good Treats. Monica's here. Bria. Caw Valley Crypto. Al McKay and Raz. Gifted membos, courtesy of Clark Blount. What's up, Clark? I have government fatigue. I have government fatigue. Well, that is understandable. Yeah, there's a lot of government happening right now. Bishop Jackson Plant. What's up, Bishop Jackson Plant? Thank you, Bishop, for becoming a membo. We appreciate that. We'll see you in the morning on the members only stream. Rick D. Hey, Rick. Hey, sorry I missed the Eric's House tour on Saturday. I have unplugged for the most part, remembering Brian and his life. Is there a replay of it? There is, Rick. Yeah, there is. They just sent it to me. There is a replay for it. Well, my man, I'm glad that you had that time to unplug. Super important to have that time. Shout out to your boy, Brian. May he rest in peace up there with my bro, Eric, hanging out together. And Rick, I hope it was a healing, restorative day. I hope you got the energy that you needed and the peace and calm that comes from those memories. I hope that you're feeling like you're in a good place. And I appreciate you being here and sending that in and saying what's up. I'll post the replay and post the link. Clark Blount, what's up? Bastille Day says, so tired of this crap, says Clark. I know it. What's up, Rick D? Gear up for every U.S. attorney that President Trump appoints to get sued civilly. Another lawfare stall tactic. It's not a bad thing. If they give him an opening, and if this judge allows it, that will be a new attack vector for sure. Like if there's some finding on, qualified immunity. Chubby, the New Jersey mayor says, this is not about revenge. Everyone else on earth is. Oh, sure. John Candy. He was great too. Cappy, so many mayors of Newark went to jail. I can't wait for Habba to get a hold of Discovery. LOL. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting lawsuit, right? So she should have a lot of evidence already because she's in the government's position. So, does he have anything that she'll be able to file about his internal conversations and what was happening in those text messages and things? Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Chubby, gotta love how the last administration and its DOJ were blatantly biased, but Dems and lefties yelled that they were separate, yet now they say the opposite. As I always say, if there weren't for double standards, the Democrats would have no standards at all. Yeah, and they're really good at applying them. They're like, well, the reason we're doing it now is because Trump's so bad. Oh, okay. No, it's just because you're insurrectionists. Oh, well, why are you throwing our opponent off the ballot? To save democracy. Oh, well, what if we did that? Then you'd be a tyrannical maniac. Okay, but you can throw them off? Yeah, because he's an insurrectionist. Okay, got it. Rhino Poop. You gotta love Spitcoat Martin, baby. Go, Eddie, go. No doubt about it. Shout out to Ed Martin. He's amazing. Doan. Autopen blew up after the Robert Hur report. And I think that's true too. Yeah. It was the crack. They tried to cover up for that. The audio also really made that real. Really made it real. Alice Elizabeth, what's up? Hiya. I was just listening to your show about Harvard and the money that they won't get for research, which was this morning. Taxpayers give money for Harvard for research. Then Harvard sells the research to pharmaceutical companies who then overcharge consumers so they can fund you guessed it, their research. Socialism for Big Pharma and Harvard, but capitalism for us. Yeah, it's a giant grift. And the analogy that we were using, or the little cycle of grift, was you go to Harvard, you work at Harvard, you're from Harvard, so then you go work in the government. Well, we need more people here to go, where'd this guy come from? Harvard. Great. Make him Secretary of State. Great. Secretary of State Blinken comes in, litters everybody with Harvard morons. And then they're always going to need more people from Harvard. And once they're in the government, they're going to need the research from Harvard as well. So Harvard's then going to get the contracts, which is the money, since they sent in all their students. So it's like this big, incestuous, disgusting grift. We went through all the numbers to the tune of billions of dollars, and they're all dying immediately if they don't get that funding, because their chemical reagents and their molecular biology biomes are all going to evaporate overnight to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And they won't dare dip into their own endowment fund. They're not going to pay for it. They'd rather you pay for it. Otherwise, it's not that important. It's not really that interesting. Cappy, Ed Martin is on a mission to expose those who use the Autopen. I hope he will find them all. Yeah, I think Ed Martin is actually delivering out of all the people who are over there. I think Ed has delivered. Clark Blount, what's up, Clark? Thanks for bringing in 10 new membos. Greg Barrett is here. Jason McGee, what's up, Heich? James S. James Piccolorella, what's up? Angela Shannon, Stefan Russell, Nihilist Solitude. We got Cyrus Draken, Harbinger of the Unconventional, all gifted membos, courtesy of Clark Blount. Thank you, Clark, for doing that. Rhino Poop, Obsequious, Give me the same shivers as meatless meatballs. Yeah, an obsequious relationship between Jill Biden and Bernal. Is she obsequiousing Bernal and Joe doesn't know? Zipped up kits. Why is no one talking about Graham going to Ukraine, spends $800,000, meets with Zelensky, and a drone attack happens on Putin's bombers? Is it a Logan Act violation? Well, funny you should ask, because I was scrolling around today and I saw that Andrew Branca, Law of Self-Defense, made a video on that exact topic. So you should check that out. He's talking about it for sure. There's so much domestic litigation going on that we cover that we don't really spend a lot of time on the foreign policy stuff. Maybe we should. In fact, my mom was saying, is there anything else you can talk about on your show? She didn't say it like that, but that's what she said. Is there anything else? I was like, like what? Entertainment? Hollywood lawsuits? No, there isn't anything else to talk about. It was my response. Rick D. Hey, we were taught in San Francisco to not wear any underwear. Less weight to carry and worry about. Oh, not San Francisco, probably Special Forces. Well, look, if your Special Forces badass, then you have that option. But that rule, I think, should not be. Most people should be wearing multiple layers. We want multiple layers between like 99% of the world's genitals and you. You want as many layers as possible. Some people should wear multiple pairs. Mostly congressmen and women. Oopsie. Okay, so since alcoholism is a disease, following their logic, the government should fund a continuous supply of alcohol for all the alcoholics in prison, because without it, they will get sick, depressed, and possibly commit suicide. Yeah, that's basically right, Boopsie. Now, they would say it's not alcoholism. It's just a dysphoric thing. It's not something that is clinical or that is even a problem. It's just a lifestyle. It's not an addiction. It's not anything that's twisted going on in a person's brain. But it would be like enabling it, right? It's kind of like enabling it. Now, I think that they would say there's maybe no harm to their bodies or something like that. Like alcohol's different because it harms your body. And I'm like, is that right? Is it good to pump yourself full of foreign hormones? Like, is that, I don't know, maybe the hormone stuff is worse than alcohol. I don't know. A lot of people drink alcohol and never have any chronic problems with it. But maybe the same can be said about hormones. I don't know. The whole thing's just bizarre and strange, and why judges are now litigating this in federal prisons and essentially calling it a violation of statutes that are not being violated at all is, I think, judicial overreach, even setting aside the issue. Thank you, Boopsie. Great comment. Uncle Bozy says, 3 days stale, but I thought this was funny. Kash Patel blinks out torture in Morse code during interview. Bongino blinks out hostage. Epstein definitely killed himself. Like, what's Kash saying? Bongino. I read the file. He's dead. All right. So somebody wrote that down and translated it. Epstein's alive and he's back on the island with Hillary and Bill Clinton. Ray K, what's up? 40 months as a membo. Hey, great song, Rob. I can't find it on iTunes. Our outro song? Is that the song or some other song? Was it the song I was just singing? Fanny and Tish? Something. I don't know. Hey, what's up, Ray K? 40 months as a membo. That's a long time, Ray K. I really appreciate that. Thanks for being an amazing membo. If you're looking for, we do have some songs. We're going to play an outro song that was crafted for us by Carrie B this morning. So we're going to play that on the way out. We got Jester Bob says, I identify as a 6-foot blonde with a D cup and a backside that could crack walnuts. I have been this way ever since I can't remember. Reality is, I'm a 5'7" brunette. Yes, I'm female, definitely overweight, but I'm a veteran. I definitely deserve all of these changes. Don't you think? There's a lot going on, Jester Bob. I don't really know what to say on this, but I appreciate the dono. Sean Davis, I just realized I've been a membo for 18 months, so you have 2 more kids, sir. Pfft, outstanding, Sean. Welcome aboard to these 2 little fellas. Sorry we forgot about you for however long it has been, but we're really glad to have you here. Welcome aboard to our new babies. Thank you, Sean Davis, for being here. For 18 months, that's a long time. Hey, Uncle Bozy, trying to decide if Yale is loving this Harvard corruption business or if they're terrified that the big, beautiful spotlight will be trained on them. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, you have to think about it just like Pepsi and Coke. Like, remember when the Coke secret was going to go over to Pepsi or something? The Pepsi people outed the Coke stealers. And it's like they're kind of a useful foil for the other side. You don't like them, but you like them. But I don't know. I think there is a real rivalry there, too. I think that Yale would like to be the preeminent university of the country. And maybe they will be. I mean, Harvard is a disaster as far as we can tell. Bonnie, why haven't we seen a single lawsuit by trans males that they are housed with the males? In many state prisons, they separate the trans females in a separate pod with the gay men. I don't even know what you just said, mostly. I have really no idea. The gays and the trans in the houses with the other trans and the gays and the males to the women and the females. It's like all just a big jumbled mess. I really don't have any idea. Why haven't we seen a lawsuit? I don't know. It's a great question, Bonnie. Maybe we will. Doggone it! Just became a membo. It's a lot to keep track of. Thank you, Bonnie. I don't know. Maybe we will. Thank you for the fun comment, though. All right, so my friends, those were amazing. Thank you for sending those in and for being so generous. Let's jump over to X, say hello to our friends on X, and then we'll wrap it up on the day. We will do members only after party. So YouTube local, stick around. We'll come back. We'll say what's up for just a few short minutes. And then we'll get into, we don't have anything on X because we're not streaming over there. Derp, forgot about that. All right, so we will leave it there on the day, my friends. Rick D said, I seem to remember that the Newark mayor being at that facility a couple days before his arrest and being warned he was trespassing. So it seems legit on the arrest. Now, I can see dropping it to move forward, as they said, but now filing suit. Got it. Yeah. So like he says, you drop it, I'll drop it. And we'll just leave it at that. Former LEO, Rick, if you're talking about San Francisco, they wear underwear, but it's backwards. No, actually, I think it's true. I don't think they wear underwear in San Francisco either. Oh, maybe that's what Rick was saying. I was taught in San Francisco. I get it, man. Your boy is slow sometimes. So I get it. So in San Francisco, no, you don't have to wear anything. I think, especially at those pride rallies. You got dudes doing like cartwheels and handsprings with their Nathan Wade's hot dog flopping all over the place. And the cops are like, well, as long as it's not erect, then there's nothing we can do about it. You're like, what kind of society is this where cops are saying that on camera? There's nothing I can do about it as long as he's not enjoying himself. He's doing like the helicopter on the corner of 6th Street. Shayna, real women can rock a pair of boxers. Not Angela Kingdom, all right? Not Angela Kingdom. For that person, it's traumatic and it's just beyond even comprehension. So the judge says, give them panties. All right. So my friends, what a fun stream it has been. Members, stick around. We're going to come back. We're going to have our after party where we will debrief and we will say what's up. But before we wrap it up on the day, my friends, I want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths, K Bean, Carrie B, John McGarvey, Donut Mind Me, Neuro D, Dog Digger, Janek, all modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. Shout out to Just Rhonda, G-Gum, and Elliot, also helping out. My friends, we're going to pause there for the evening. We're going to fix the tubes for tomorrow, and we'll get everything back on track. I'm actually thinking about another service. But we're going to continue the show and keep this train on the tracks the rest of the week. It's been a real treat. So we're going to play this song. Then we're going to cut out, and we'll see everybody back here tomorrow. But before we wrap it up, of course, we got to make sure that you come back and join us tomorrow so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
the watchers that got the gel on the scholar. CNN tells you why bus just to stare and shock ya. You need a true topper, like watching the watchers. He's a lawyer named Ron. If he makes the good solve, and your line is a job. He's a patriot heartthrob, exposing the leftist mob. It's watching the watchers.
Carrie B.
Hey, we're watching the watchers. Watchers, watchers, watchers. Watch on PC, Mac and mobile. 6 days, 11 streams in total. Check him out on all the socials. X from YouTube and locals. It's watching the watchers. Are you watching the watchers? We're watching the watchers.
Vibin' Disco Funk. That's from Carrie B, baby.
It's watching the watchers. Are you watching the watchers? The watchers. We're watching the watchers.
Al Green, is that who it reminds me of? I think so. Amazing. Carrie B, thank you for making that. My friends, okay, that's going to be it for us on the day. Membos, stick around, hit the refresh button. We're going to reboot the Membo stream in just a bit. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.